about how deeply hurt I felt and how much I still loved him. The tension between what my heart wanted and what my mind knew was suffocating. It wasn't easy to avoid him. He tried to reach out, of course. He called and sent texts, apologizing, but each time he did, the words felt empty. There was no real accountability in them. It was as if he was trying to smooth things over without truly acknowledging the damage he had caused. "I miss you," he'd say. "Can we talk? I'm sorry, I'm just stressed, it's not what you think." But nothing was truly resolved. I couldn't go back to him without seeing genuine change. I needed him to understand the weight of what he had done, how deep the emotional wound was. One evening, after dinner with my mother-in-law, I decided it was time to have a real conversation. I couldn't keep running from this. I needed to face him, but I wasn't going to make it easy. I was still angry, confused, and hurt. But most of all, I was determined to know if this relationship was even worth saving. I returned home, feeling an anxious knot in my stomach. My heart was racing as I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The house felt strangely empty, even though I knew he was there. When he heard me, he rushed to the living room, his face an odd mixture of relief and uncertainty. "Hey," he said quietly, standing by the couch, as if unsure of how to approach me. "I've been thinking about everything. I really have. I want to fix this. I need you to know I never meant to hurt you. Sarah, it's not like that, okay? I just got caught up in everything, and I didn't realize how much it was affecting you." I stared at him, my emotions swirling. His words sounded sincere, but I had heard them before, and they were always followed by excuses, by him shifting the blame. This time, I needed more than just apologies. I needed action. I needed to see that he was serious about making things right. I took a deep breath. "You keep saying it's not like that, but your actions say otherwise. You made me feel invisible, like I wasn't enough. I can't just ignore that anymore, and I won't." He took a step toward me, his voice desperate. I know, and I'm sorry. Please, just listen. I understand now. Sarah, she gave me the attention I thought I needed, but that was a mistake. I was wrong to let it get so far. I never wanted to hurt you, but I did, and I see that now." I felt a flicker of hope, but it was quickly overshadowed by my anger. "You keep saying you understand, but it feels like you're just saying what I want to hear. I can't keep living in this uncertainty. I need you to prove it to me. I need to know you're willing to make a change. I can't do this alone." He stood there for a moment, eyes pleading, then nodded slowly. "I'll do whatever it takes. I'll cut ties with Sarah. I'll ask for a transfer if it's what you need. I don't want to lose you. Please, I'll fix this, I swear." His words, though hopeful, felt like a temporary fix. Could I believe him? Could I trust him again after everything? The idea of him leaving Sarah behind sounded like a solution, but was it enough to erase the damage done? I wanted to believe him. I really did. But as I looked into his eyes, I knew I couldn't make that decision yet. We needed time. I needed time. "I need space," I told him softly, my voice breaking. "I don't know if I can trust you right now, but I'm not giving up yet. We'll figure this out, but we can't do it in a rush." He nodded, visibly upset but understanding. I could tell he was trying to process everything, but I wasn't sure if he was ready to truly change. We both needed time to heal, if that was even possible. As I turned to walk away, I felt a small sense of relief. But deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. Would he really change? Could we repair this? Only time would tell. The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions. After that heated conversation, I didn't know what to expect. On the one hand, he had promised to make changes, to let go of Sarah and ask for a transfer. On the other hand, I couldn't help but wonder if he was just saying what I wanted to hear, trying to avoid the consequences of his actions. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, but I also didn't want to jump to conclusions too quickly. I needed time, just as I had told him. For a few days, he kept his distance. He didn't bombard me with texts or calls, which was unusual for him. He respected my need for space, but it also left me feeling uneasy. Was he really trying to change, or was he just trying to lay low, hoping I would forget? Every time I picked up my phone and saw a text from him, my stomach would flip. I wanted to believe that he was sincere, but my trust in him had been shattered, and I wasn't sure how to rebuild it. The silence was broken one afternoon when he called, his voice shaky. "Can we talk?" he asked. I hesitated for a moment before agreeing to meet at a nearby coffee shop. I wasn't sure what to expect, but part of me hoped that this conversation would finally give me some answers. When I arrived, he was already sitting at a table by the window, staring out at the street. He looked lost in thought, his shoulders tense. I could tell he hadn't been sleeping well. He looked up when I sat down, his face a mixture of guilt and desperation. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he began, his voice low. "About everything. About Sarah, about us, and what I've been doing. I messed up, and I know I can't just say sorry and expect it to fix everything. I need to show you that I'm serious about making changes." My heart twisted in my chest as I listened. Was this real? Or was this just another attempt at damage control? "I've already spoken to my boss," he continued. "I asked to be transferred. I don't want to work with Sarah anymore. I don't want her in my life, and I don't want to keep making excuses for what happened. I know I've hurt you, and I need you to see that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But every time he spoke, I couldn't help but wonder if this was just another round of empty promises. He had apologized before, but his actions never matched his words. I could see the sincerity in his eyes, but how could I trust him again? "So what now?" I asked, my voice quieter than I intended. "How do we move forward from here?" He paused for a moment, looking down at his hands, then back at me. "I know I don't deserve your trust right now, but I'm asking for a chance. I'm asking for time to prove that I can change. But I can't do this without you. I need you in this too." His words hung in the air between us, and for a moment, I felt the weight of everything that had happened. Could I really move past the betrayal? Could I ever feel secure again in our relationship? "I don't know if I can trust you again," I said, my voice breaking. "I need to see more than just words. I need to see actions. I need time, and I need you to be patient with me. This isn't something I can just let go of overnight." He nodded, his expression softening. "I understand. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll wait for you, and I'll prove to you that I'm serious about making this right." We sat there in silence for a while, the weight of the conversation lingering between us. Part of me wanted to believe that things could be fixed, that we could find our way back to each other. But the other part of me wasn't so sure. Could I really trust him again? Would this time be different? Or was I setting myself up for more heartache? I didn't have all the answers. I wasn't sure if this was the beginning of a new chapter or just another false hope. All I knew was that I needed time, and I needed him to show me, not just tell me, that he was truly committed to making things right. Only time would tell if we could rebuild what we had lost. The silence between us was heavy, and I could barely look Sam in the eyes. His apology was there, but it didn't feel real. How could it? After everything that had happened, how could one simple sorry erase the humiliation I had felt being abandoned in a foreign place? I had tried to stay calm, to give him a chance to explain, but the more I thought about it, the more it felt like he was just offering me words without understanding the full weight of what he had done. "I don't know if I can just forget about this, Sam," I said again, my voice trembling. "It's not about a joke anymore. It's about trust. You left me. You didn't even think for 1 second how I would feel." He was quiet for a long time, and I could see him struggling, his eyes darting around the empty lobby, avoiding mine. I stood there, feeling the rush of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. Anger, hurt, confusion, they all mixed together, leaving me unsure of what to do next. I didn't want to be alone, but I couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay. I had to figure out what came next, for me. "I know I've messed up," Sam finally spoke, his voice shaky now. "But I swear, it was just a stupid prank. I didn't think it through. I never intended for it to go this far. I thought you'd laugh it off, but when I saw how upset you were, I realized I'd made the biggest mistake." I shook my head, my thoughts racing. The thing that hurt the most wasn't just being left alone. It was the fact that Sam hadn't taken the time to think about me at all. How could he have assumed I'd just laugh along with him and his friends? It wasn't like him to be so thoughtless. I had spent years with this man, and now I was faced with someone I didn't recognize. "You think it's that simple?" I asked him, my voice breaking with frustration. "You think you can just apologize and everything will be fine? You left me in the middle of nowhere. You didn't even care that I was scared, That I had no idea where I was or how to get back to the hotel. How could I just forget that? Sam's face fell, and I could see the regret in his eyes. But it wasn't enough. I wanted more than regret. I wanted an explanation. And I wanted it to be real. I wanted him to tell me that he understood why what he had done was so wrong. Not just that he had messed up. The air between us felt thick, the weight of the silence unbearable. I stepped back, feeling a sense of distance grow between us. I don't know what to do right now, I whispered. I just need some space. Sam nodded, his shoulders slumping as if the weight of everything had finally hit him. He didn't try to stop me as I turned to leave the lobby. I walked out into the cool night air, feeling the chill of the evening against my skin. The streets of the small town were quiet now, almost deserted. I wandered aimlessly, not sure where I was going, but needing to be away from Sam, away from everything. As I walked through the narrow streets, I tried to process everything that had happened. My mind kept coming back to one thing: the feeling of being abandoned, left behind, like I didn't matter. I had trusted Sam, and now it felt like that trust had been shattered. Just like that, in the blink of an eye. I kept asking myself, how could he have thought that it was funny? How could he have left me in a place I didn't know, without any way to reach him? The confusion and hurt were still there, and no amount of apologies seemed to change that. I wandered through the quiet town for what felt like hours, unsure of what I was doing or where I was going. The town seemed so peaceful, but inside, I was anything but. My heart was heavy with the weight of betrayal, and I felt like I was losing grip on everything I thought I knew about Sam. Was this just a one-time mistake? Or had I missed something all along, something deeper, that was now coming to the surface? By the time I made my way back to the hotel, I had no answers. I couldn't figure out what I wanted or what I was supposed to do next. All I knew was that the person who had walked into the hotel earlier that day, hoping for answers, was no longer the same person who was walking out. I had changed, and I didn't know where I stood anymore. When I returned to the hotel room, Sam was gone. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty bed. Everything felt different now, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside me had shifted. Would I ever be able to trust him again? Would I ever be able to forgive him? I didn't know, and the uncertainty was the hardest part of all. I never expected my life to turn into this mess. It all started with a simple feeling of unease about my husband's relationship with a coworker, Sarah. At first, I thought it was nothing, just harmless friendship. But when I started digging, I found something that shook me to the core. It wasn't just a friendship. It was more. Emotional lines had been crossed, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. My heart ached as I discovered things I wasn't ready to face. Now here I am, lost and questioning everything. What's next for us? Will I ever be enough? It all started one evening when I felt a strange knot in my stomach. My husband, whom I thought I knew so well, had been acting differently lately. I couldn't put my finger on it, but something wasn't right. He had always been a little distant at times, but this felt like more. I couldn't ignore the subtle signs, the extra hours at work, the way he'd smile at his phone whenever Sarah, a coworker of his, texted. At first, I brushed it off as paranoia. After all, they were just colleagues, right? But the uneasy feeling lingered, gnawing at me. That's when I decided to dig a little deeper. I knew my husband's password, a minor detail he had never hidden from me, so it was easy to unlock his phone. As I scanned through the messages between him and Sarah, I felt a cold chill run through my veins. Nothing seemed outright inappropriate, but there were too many conversations that danced on the edge of something more than professional. Sarah had been flirty at times, and although my husband didn't fully engage, he never shut her down either. He praised her work ethic and intelligence repeatedly, something that bothered me more than I expected. Was it normal to compliment someone so often? Why did it feel like he was trying to prove something? The more I looked, the more I found. Every day they had lunch together, just the two of them. They'd sit in the office, exchanging gossip about colleagues and complaining about work. But it wasn't just casual small talk. They often shared private jokes and made remarks about other coworkers. "Let's talk more at lunch. They're serving something awful today," he'd text her. It was as though they had their own little world, and I wasn't part of it. The worst part? They never invited anyone else, it was always just them. I found another message where he mentioned something strange. I'm sure if you were a wife, you would understand. My heart sank when I read that. He didn't say my wife. He said a wife. It was as though I wasn't even in the picture. And to make matters worse, I discovered that Sarah had broken one of my favorite mugs, one that had sentimental value. When I asked him about it later, he shrugged it off. Yeah, the photo gifts are kind of corny, he said nonchalantly, but he didn't seem upset with her at all. He didn't even defend me or acknowledge how hurtful it was. I felt a sting in my chest. Was this what my marriage had come to? His connection with Sarah was growing, but I couldn't tell if it was just friendly or if there was something more to it. I decided to dig even further. I checked his email, his work email, his browsing history, and even our shared devices. I looked high and low for any sign of cheating, a second phone, anything that could confirm my worst fears. But I found nothing, not a single trace of physical infidelity. Everything was always on the edge, something I couldn't quite grasp. No outright cheating, but enough to make me feel like an outsider in my own marriage. I knew I had to confront him, but I didn't know what I was walking into. Would he deny everything? Would he defend Sarah? I had no idea. What I did know was that I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay when something inside me was screaming that it wasn't. I had to get to the bottom of this. I had to know if this was something I could fix, or if I was already too late. I couldn't wait any longer. After everything I had discovered, the time had come to confront him. My heart was pounding in my chest as I sat down at the kitchen table, staring at the phone in my hands. I had to be calm, collected. This wasn't the time for tears or accusations. I had to show him that I was serious. I wasn't going to let him dismiss my concerns like they were nothing. I wasn't going to ignore the red flags anymore. I waited for him to come home, knowing full well that he'd be coming from lunch with Sarah. It wasn't hard to tell when he walked through the door. There was that familiar smell of cologne mixed with the faintest scent of something spicy. He smiled at me like everything was fine, but I could feel the tension between us, thick in the air. I knew he could tell something was off. Hey babe, you good? He asked, setting his briefcase down and trying to make small talk. He didn't notice the way my eyes narrowed, didn't see the seriousness in my posture. I wasn't in the mood for casual chatter. Not now. I stood up and turned to face him, taking a deep breath. We need to talk, I said, my voice steady but shaking with the weight of what I was about to say. He frowned, sensing something was coming. About what? I didn't hesitate. I went straight to the point, laying everything out in front of him. I know about the lunches with Sarah. I know you talk to her every day. I know how you praise her, how she's the only one you seem to connect with at work. I know she's flirty, and I know you're not exactly shutting her down. And don't tell me I'm overreacting because I'm not. It hurts. The look on his face shifted instantly, from confusion to defensiveness. He opened his mouth, but I didn't let him interrupt me. And the worst part? You keep saying, if you were a wife, you'd understand. Like I'm just some outsider in your life, I continued. I don't even think you realize how that makes me feel. His expression darkened, but he remained silent, waiting for me to finish. So I did. I need you to stop talking to her. I need you to ask for a transfer or change departments. I can't keep living like this. It's tearing me apart, and I don't think you understand just how deep this is. Either we fix this, or I'm done. The silence that followed was suffocating. I could feel the tension crackling between us. He wasn't saying anything, just staring at me with wide eyes as if he couldn't quite process what I had just said. His gaze flickered toward the door, like he was thinking of walking out. I held my breath, waiting for his response. And then, it happened. He snapped. Are you kidding me? His voice was raised now, louder than it had been in a while. I never cheated on you. I've always been honest. You can't control who I talk to at work. This is ridiculous. I was taken aback by how quickly his tone shifted from calm to angry in an instant. The words stung, but they didn't surprise me. What shocked me more was the venom behind them, the way he accused me of being a narcissist and a control freak. You don't get it, do you? He continued, pacing now. This whole situation helps me. Sarah is someone I can talk to, someone who listens. You don't know how hard my work is. how stressful everything is right now. If I lose that, I'll lose my mind. I stood there, trying to process his words, but my heart was breaking with every passing second. I couldn't believe how little he seemed to care about how I was feeling. It was like I didn't even exist in his world when it came to this. I can't take this anymore, I said, my voice barely a whisper, overwhelmed by emotion. I can't keep fighting for something you're not even willing to see. I need space. I turned away, grabbing a small bag I had packed earlier. Tears welled in my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I needed to be strong. I called my mother-in-law, who had always been kind to me, and explained what was going on. She was upset, but offered me a place to stay. As I left, I could feel the weight of what was happening crashing down on me. Would he change? Could we fix this? I didn't know, but I couldn't stick around to keep wondering. I needed time to think, to figure out where we stood. For now, all I could do was wait, and hope he would finally understand. I spent the next few days at my mother-in-law's in a strange limbo. I wasn't sure what I was waiting for, whether I was hoping for him to apologize or to see things from my perspective. But I couldn't just sit around. Every time I closed my eyes, the image of him with Sarah kept flashing in my mind. I couldn't escape it. I couldn't stop thinking,